This is Abacus. You are listening to Everfree Radio Fanfiction Corner. The next section contains spoilers for the fanfiction in question. You have been warned. Click, 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 click.
Hello. Welcome to Fanfic Review Corner. I am Moonlight, and joining me today we have Final Draft in the place of Bones, as well as a special guest reviewer, Andrew Joshua Talon, noted author of Progress and Other Works.
Hello.
Hi there.
Today we're going to take a look at a game of Twits by author Cassius, or Cassius. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Well, if it's based off of the Shakespearean character, I think it's Cassius, and if it's off of the Roman historical figure, it'd be Cassius.
So, take your pick, whichever is easier to pronounce.
Either way, he's got a lean and hungry look, doesn't he?
Kinda does. This is actually his first work.
And as first works go, well, let's take a look.
Yes, let's. So, the basic plot of it is Twilight and Fluttershy often play chess together in a local cafe, but during a mishap, they break a table, and the cost of that added to their rising tab leads them to around 500 bits.
Yeah, that's a little more than my insurance payments per month, if dollars translate to bits, which I don't know if they do. But I'm not going to try and work out the currency or economics of a fictional magical pony world, so...
I'm going to make a pun here that needs to be made.
Oh, no.
That's quite a bit of money.
It is.
Oh, God.
And a bit of money that neither of which can afford to pay off.
But, as fate would have it, there is in fact a chess tournament coming up with a reward in the amount that they need to pay off their debt.
Yes, the first prize is 1,000 bits, second prize is 300, and last prize is 200, so they just need to make first, or each of them get second and third place. Either way, if they win, they can pay it off.
Well, this prompts Twilight and Fluttershy, the main characters of the story, to practice at chess and try and improve so that they can win the cash prize.
As the old chestnut goes, hilarity ensues. Or something like it.
But rather than go into the story at any more depth, I'd rather let you guys read it without spoiling anything.
Basically, this story is a one-shot, and what a one-shot needs to do is, it functions basically as a short story. You tell a short, contained story involving the characters going throughout a scenario or situation, or just an average day, and you show something about them.
So you would say that it's more of a character study than anything else?
Not quite a character study, more of a slice of life with a bit of character study, but not too in-depth. Chief above everything else, it is a comedy, and it's a sweethearted, simple, but effectively told one, at least in my opinion.
I can see that.
Now, there are some stylistic things that will appeal to different people. For one, the slightly whimsical approach to describing the chess games. It shows that the author does actually understand chess, or at least read enough of Wikipedia to understand it. But they also took a slightly more whimsical approach in writing the scenarios, giving the pawns life, as it were, the pieces life, as it were. This isn't really explained, except in one case where, spoilers, the pieces are played as part of a little scenario by Twilight, though how she can play out a whole life-size chess game with just 3 or 4 ponies is kind of a mystery. Good things we liked about this fanfiction. For one shot, it's well punctuated, which is always a plus. Spelling is not off at all. The story itself is pretty self-contained and focused around one thing. It doesn't wander off into various tangents. The jokes work. Most of them do, anyway. It has a very whimsical feel to the approach to chess, and it's well-researched, either by internet or by personal experience of the author. And, well, while you can see the ending coming probably a mile away, it at least has the decency to acknowledge that it's pretty obvious.
Well, overall, I liked it because like you said, it was written in a very contained way. It felt to me like it was an episode. Like, it seemed that each of the segments of the story were in fact acts, which is something that a lot of fics can't accomplish. And I know that listeners to the fanfic review corner haven't heard me chime in before, but I read a fair bit of fanfics myself, and this one does stand out in that regard. And you're right, the grammar, as an editor of a few fanfics, I can say that looking at the grammar and as you said, the punctuation and the spelling, the author did a very solid job in that regard.
I'm just going off of what Draft said about how it felt like an episode. That's something I want to see more in one-shots in particular. It's one of those things that you don't see very often, a fanfic that actually seems like it could, in fact, be an episode. Like, there's nothing too crazy going on here, nothing too adult or way too childish for an episode, but it's something that could happen. And that's mainly what I liked about it. The grammar and the spelling is also pretty good, especially for what I assume is a first-time author. But now that we've heard what you both, as well as I, think about the good things, are there any bad things you guys had?
Well, if we're going to be doing critical analysis, I do.
I do, period.
I do, as a matter of fact.
Will you marry this fic?
No, but we can be friends.
Why only friends? Why are you keeping it platonic, Andrew?
Because, while it has a good premise, it does tend to wander a little too whimsically. I said I liked the whimsical parts, but I also recognize that they can be very confusing. For instance, animating the chess pieces, giving them wills and lives of their own. I mean, are they playing with enchanted chess pieces? Or, like in Harry Potter, can they move about? Can they have emotions? Do they run about the board? I don't get that.
Well, to interject here, I think the author was trying to have Twilight project her craziness, her neuroticness in having the pieces have wills, as it were. I don't think it was supposed to be literally that they were thinking. And of course, there is the scene in there where she has the Cutie Mark Crusaders and the other fillies playing as chess pieces, which I was confused by at first. But then when it's revealed that they were just ponies that she had strong-armed into helping her experiment and helping her research better strategies, it made a little more sense to me.
Except that it's not the case in the tournament scene, so then it just becomes kind of confusing. What, did she recruit the Cutie Mark Crusaders again to play chess pieces? I don't know.
I think that he was just trying to enliven the game, maybe, instead of just telling it. I didn't read it as the pieces actually had thoughts and were actually resigning in loyalty. But then again, I could see where that may be confusing.
Another aspect is the ending. While it is nicely tied together, the lesson was not very well developed. I mean, you guys say it could be an episode, and I agree the central premise would make sense for an episode, but it just doesn't seem explored enough. The writing seems a little too detached. I mean, particularly in the case of Fluttershy training to become a better chess player with Twilight. I mean, we don't even get a montage.
Well, and the thing I didn't get overall was how dependent on economics this whole thing was. Apparently, Fluttershy has a stipend every month. Twilight is afraid of borrowing money from Celestia. At one point, we hear of a check being written. Another point, we're seeing bills that need to be paid in large amounts. And I know that in the show, they have a rudimentary economy, but it seems to me that ponies, it's just not about money. It seemed to me a weird motivation that the reason they had to compete in this tournament was to somehow pay off a bill at the restaurant. That felt over the top to me.
Well, in the case of Twilight, it doesn't seem like that much of a stretch that she would not want to borrow money from Celestia. She always wants to look perfect in Celestia's eyes, and she could see that as being a sort of failure.
And as an episode concept, dealing with the debt alone might make for an interesting concept. Obviously, you're not going to be going into high-scale economics for Equestria, but learning how to make your keep, to work hard, to make money, keep your promises and fulfill your obligations, pay off your debt and things like that. That could be an interesting premise all on its own. You could even make it hilarious and funny as Twilight, who's never actually held a job aside from being a full-time student in her life, tries various odd jobs to earn money without having to ask Celestia for money to pay her debts.
So what you're basically suggesting is that an episode where Twilight learns to use a abacus, perhaps?
Oh no.
No, that's a little too off the cuff, I think.
I've heard of certain fanfics out there that make use of that beaded instrument.
Well, she already has in a recent episode. I was most gratified, even though it wasn't Luna using it, for some reason.
Abacus was cheating on her.
No! Sorry, baby, I got with the newer, faster, slimmer model. Purple is in.
And things just
boy.
clicked.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh, God.
Moving on.
Other things that we found need work in this fanfic.
I don't know why in the fic Cassius used the word mayhap. I didn't like that. It stuck out to me. It just didn't fit.
And there were some awkward turns of phrase here and there. The dialogue did seem a bit artificial at times, in a few particular places.
It felt like to me, at least from a grammatical standpoint, that although the grammar was correct, that the author often used passive sentence structures and constructions to give a certain air to the fic at times that just didn't seem necessary. It almost seemed too haughty for the descriptions that were there.
Another thing I had a problem with was the treatment of Big Mac in this fanfiction. He is said to be one of the best chess players in Ponyville, but we don't actually see any evidence of that. He's just trumped in every single match. And so either Ponyville chess players in general really, really suck, or he was just kind of using Big Mac for that purpose. So that felt a little confusing to me.
To be fair, he was against the main characters of the story. Can you really expect him to
Maybe
win?
not, but then why would he rage quit the tournament? That doesn't seem like Big Mac. He seems like the stubborn kind who would last through.
That doesn't really seem like him, does it?
No, or he'd just be very polite and accepting. In addition, some of Fluttershy's remarks seemed out of character, a bit insensitive, and yeah, sometimes she can go on a bit of a ramble when she's particularly stressed out, and that's understandable, but in other places it seemed like the moment was wrong for that particular habit of hers.
We're making a lot of criticisms here, but this is all bearing in mind that I thought this was a generally solid fic. I did feel, however, that the idea that money was the motivation for the fic, the idea that they were playing chess to pay a bill, that I got stuck on. During the whole time I was reading it, I was thinking, why couldn't there be something more interesting or something more, I don't know, personal than a bill for daffodil sandwiches?
I agree. Again, going back to my previous point, a debt and money-focused story plot is not inherently bad, but it has to be about the characters. It's not just about paying back the bill, it's about what do the characters do, what do they learn, how do they react to this. And in this case, the central focus is supposed to be chess, but we don't use it to explore the characters very much. This is Abacus. You are listening to Everfree Radio Fanfiction Corner. The next section contains spoilers for the fanfiction in question. You have been warned. Click, 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 click.
So, God, how do I start this off without seeming weird?
You could say,
and
let's talk about the ending.
So, how about that ending, guys? What did you think about it?
I would say it was predictable.
I'd say that the ending was about as obvious as Princess Celestia drunkenly running through a garden screaming, "I'm so obvious!"
I can see that. I can see that happening.
Really?
No.
Celestia drunk?
Celestia drunk, that's a thought.
Oh god, the sun is just going to go backwards.
John Hoseko, don't listen in on this. Don't listen in.
I think he's already done that. Besides, Draft, we've already reviewed that fanfic.
Oh, Lord. I would say that it was an obvious ending. I'm just going to throw the name out there. Luna. And I knew it was going to be Luna from the beginning. As soon as you hear that there is the Black Queen, the mysterious champion of Canterlot, and then she talks about how long she had studied chess, and that it had been her whole lifetime, and that was way more than Twilight's lifetime, apparently, it was pretty obvious it was Luna. And my thought when I finished reading the fic was, on the one hand, I could criticize the fic and say, It was Luna, it was an obvious ending. But then I thought, okay, what could I have done differently? If I was the writer, what would I have done differently knowing it was Luna? I kind of challenged myself with that thought. And my opinion is that the author should have revealed it was Luna earlier on in the fic to Twilight. And that then Twilight would have to keep that information from Fluttershy or something, just to make it less of an obvious ending. Because I like Luna. I mean, Andrew, I think you kind of like Luna, right?
I love Luna. Though I haven't written for her a lot lately, mainly because I think I've done too much with her and I need to give her a break. There are ways to write her and to write Twilight and to write Fluttershy and to write their interactions to do interesting things with the characters, and I don't really think they did a lot with this.
Well, as a Luna writing expert, how would you take things differently?
I wouldn't call myself an expert on Luna fanfic writing, but if it was me, I would have made the tournament the center of the story's conflict, with each of the main characters having a different conflict in regards to the tournament. For Twilight Sparkle, it would be the prospect of being shown up by Fluttershy and seeing how she could take being shown up in an arena that has traditionally been hers and hers alone, winning in chess. For Fluttershy, her central conflict would be with Twilight, proving that she can be just as good at chess, but also having to fight her own insecurities and social awkwardness about it, about showing off her talent in public. And for Luna, it would be interacting with her subjects in a way she herself loves, but having the awkwardness of having to relate to them 1,000 years hence, because you can't just resolve everything with being locked away in the moon for 1,000 years and then coming back as a dark goddess of ultimate evil in just one episode. There are other ways to explore a character and how all three of them resolve it.
Chapters of ways, in fact.
Indeed.
What's also kind of bothering me after I finished reading the fic, is it really possible to build tension in a fanfic around a game of chess, especially given that some of your audience is not going to be familiar with that game? It felt to me like what the author should have done is at least given a bare bones description of how chess works or something to that effect. And I understand that this fic was trying to, basically be almost in a sense a crossover chess with ponies. Even though chess is canon and I recognize that to the show, I'm just wondering if there was a way to build tension, because it seems like the climactic scene where Fluttershy is battling wits with the pony who ends up being Luna, it's a chess game, and it really didn't translate as something very
thrilling.
Yeah, it was hard to make it thrilling, it seemed to me.
I kind of agree with you. I don't think there is much of a way to make chess exciting.
Well, I think there is.
My feeling is that there are ways to write chess as being exciting and gripping, but it has to be done properly. And here we feel, for the central premise of the fic, it seems strangely disconnected from it. Sure, we get the whimsical little projections of the chess people having wills of their own, but that doesn't really contribute anything. It's a non sequitur.
Well, and if you're wondering if there's a way for any kind of fictional work to prove that chess can be an exciting or an engaging thing, just watch the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. You don't even have to play chess, and that entire movie is just gripping and is a wonderful character study. I can see a fanfic about ponies involving chess being gripping. I just don't know if the mechanics of the chess game is the way to do it. It almost seems to me that it should be that character interaction, like Andrew was saying. It's who's matched against who. It's whose character is against whose character.
Yes, you have to think of the chess set as tools, basically, for the characters to interact with. You use them as a medium for them to relate to each other and to the world. And we didn't really get much of that from the story.
One other idea I had, and this is a little bit off that, was that it seemed to me, if you are going to decide to discuss the moves of a chess game, and it's supposed to be a battle of wits between two geniuses or two advanced players, why not model it after a real chess game? I was thinking the whole time, I've got a book by Bobby Fischer sitting on my shelf. If I had been writing this, I would have looked at that and looked at each of the moves there and drawn some inspiration from this. It seemed almost like the chess moves in this game, or the actual games themselves, were almost superfluous. It was more, it was the result and the aftermath of each game that was important.
Indeed, and I know it sounds a bit cliche, but there really is a rhythm to writing, from how the dialogue of the character sounds to how the story flows, to the sequence of events. And a chess game actually does serve as a pretty nice way to get a rhythm or pace going with your story. Each round of play involves two players having to make decisions on their turn, and the player having to respond to that turn. That allows you a very basic but very effective way of pacing out your story.
Well, and another example of a film showing that you don't need to know the moves or the mechanics of the game of chess in order to have a dramatic impact or a comedical impact is the short film Jerry's Game by Pixar, which plays before A Bug's Life, if you've ever seen the video or the DVD of it.
It doesn't hurt that it's also very, very funny.
Oh, yeah.
The chess game is a little more difficult to work with in text, but it is just as possible if you put your mind to it, because it is just another tool of the plot. You use it as a means of interface between your characters, and it wasn't effectively used here. It's almost like an afterthought. It could basically be any other kind of gaming tournament or contest, and it would just be almost as effective.
Yeah, it could have been about checkers instead.
Checkers.
Well, maybe not checkers.
Not much of a leap there.
Well, okay.
Can you see Twilight or Luna playing checkers?
Yes.
Not really.
No. It's not a game of wits.
Now, hold on. There are people listening who I think will agree with me that it could be. That being said, it's not chess.
You can be a genius and still play checkers. It's just not a game for geniuses.
You guys are going to isolate some people online here with words like that.
Like Mass Effect 3.
Oh my.
Yes. Bring on the hurricane!
Or Skyrim.
Oh, God. Oh, we are so screwed.
Oh, boy.
Well, one thing also that never really made sense to me, and maybe the author addressed it somehow, I just didn't catch it, was why Luna toyed with Fluttershy in that match for 20 or so moves, knowing that they were illegal moves. It just seemed like it was never resolved. And beyond that, as a chess player myself, and I know that a lot of people listening play chess, you don't, especially if you're knowledgeable in chess and you've been studying for weeks or whatever, you are not going to miss that your king is in check for 20 moves. That just doesn't happen.
Not unless you're the most unobservant, brain-dead moron in existence, and Fluttershy is certainly not that.
Definitely not.
I don't know if she was paying that much attention, considering she was off in her own little fantasy land, imagining the chess game as a gigantic war.
Yeah, but it kind of throws the whole thing off.
It's not like I'm saying it was a good thing. It does make no sense. But that might have been what the author was going for.
It just makes the whole thing feel anticlimactic. When your kind of antagonist has been playing with your protagonist for no real reason, and you make your protagonist dumb.
I'm trying to understand what the author's motivation was for including that in the fic. Was it supposed to delay our understanding of the Black Queen's character? It didn't make sense to me why it was there at all.
Well, a somewhat minor thing for me is more that Pinkie Pie is locked away babysitting the Cake twins the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a chess match. It seems like a strange juxtaposition. You don't necessarily have to do anything with her, but I guess it just seemed out of character for her to just kind of go and play quietly. I mean, this is Pinkie Pie, after all.
I would have thought it would have been hilarious to have her go over the top about chess, maybe have some like cheerleading going on or something. That would have been much more in her character, and it would have been funny.
Yeah, and there were funny moments in this fic, but it also missed a lot of opportunities for funny moments.
You know what I would have thought would have been funny? If the Black Queen turned out to be Pinkie Pie.
I was actually expecting that.
You were?
Oh god, that would have been awesome. Actually, it makes perfect sense. She goes upstairs. We don't see her. And we have this mysterious pony nobody has ever heard of or seen before.
I was expecting it was going to be Pinkie Pie or Luna.
There is the problem with that ending up being the case, because of the Black Queen pulls down her hood and shows who she is.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that either when the Black Queen reveals her face, and it's this alabaster unicorn with a pink mane.
Fleur-de-lis.
That's what I was thinking too.
So what, is Luna impersonating a pony version of Sakura from Naruto?
Believe it!
Oh, I knew that was going to happen, and I still did it.
I was going to do it, then I said no, I couldn't do it.
And you know what? That's what I'm here for, dear listeners, dear readers. I'm here to throw those kinds of references in there,
Mando would be proud.
And it's our job to painfully torture it out of him after the show.
Yep.
To no avail.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
One of these days we should just release a video of all our bloopers.
We lose all the listeners.
Oh god.
They'd say, really?
All of them.
Everfree
EFR,
Radio.
a professional environment.
Professional, yeah.
Totally professional. John Madden.
That has stopped. That has stopped.
That has stopped. Now it's tanks.
Now it's tanks,
Oh god.
which is awesome. You should join us.
Never. I'll never join you.
It's World of Tanks. Anyway, yeah.
Let's finish this before we're completely drawn off topic.
Agreed.
Yes. The one last thing that I didn't get, or at least that I think could have been an opportunity for the author, was that Fluttershy has a history of being absolutely terrified of Luna. And seeing as this was written relatively recently, given some of the references in the fic, I would have thought that when Fluttershy saw Luna in the room after the matches, that it would have been at least a decent shout out to the show if Fluttershy acted nervously or reacted a different way. Instead, she acts like it's nothing.
And that just is not Fluttershy. I mean, geez, she practically passed out the last time she met Luna from fright, and yet nothing?
Yeah, she seemed way too at ease to be around a royal sister, let alone Luna.
We have no idea when this fic actually takes place, so for all we know, she could have grown more accustomed to being around the royalty.
Well, if we're going to presume that this is a canon-based fic, then it has to be set somewhere after Luna Eclipse because Luna is not yelling or speaking completely archaically.
Definitely.
All right, gentlemen, how about you share your final thoughts with us before we have to close out?
Like I said, it feels like it could be a perfect episode. It was good, it wasn't wholly terrible. There were a couple of bad points that we already went over. Overall, I'd give it a 3.8 out of 5. Not too bad, but it's not amazing either.
As far as first-time fics go, this could have been a lot worse, but it's very disorganized, it's very unpolished, it misses a lot of opportunities, it doesn't get deep into the characters, and a couple of things, but it's not a terrible fic by any stretch of the imagination, it's just not a very memorable one. The premise, the suggested possibilities of it, are far more interesting than the story itself, which means that the writer does have creativity, and he just has to recognize it and bring it out, as well as pay a little more attention to character and detail. Out of 5, I'd give this a 3. It's not a great fanfic, it's not a horrible fanfic, it is a competent fic, it just needs a lot of improvement.
My final thought on this fic is that although I've been criticizing it quite a bit in this review, I thought overall it was fairly solid for a one-shot, and it was better written than many that I've read. Going by internet standards, the grammar was godly. But I think that, again, like Andrew said and like Moonlight said, it really misses some opportunities. It goes with a very interesting premise, but it could take it further. I feel that if this had explored more characterization, it had really not depended so much on a contrivance, which was the idea that they had to pay a bill. I couldn't get past that. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, though, and the reason I say that is because it has so much potential, and because it was written clearly with a certain amount of characterization nonetheless, it stood out to me as a bit higher quality than most, but not good enough to get a superior rating.
So, overall, we kind of liked it, but there's plenty of room to grow.
I think it shows that the author has a lot of promise.
I, for one, look forward to seeing what more the author can dish out to us.
And trust me, I have seen a lot worse. This is a good start, so keep going from here. The problem, though, of course, is that writing is more often an art than a science, and to be honest, the only real way to get good at it is experience. So stuff like this could be common in his future, unless he practices. It's different for everyone. But the point is, don't give it up, keep writing, and let's see where you can go. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be up.
Before we wrap this up for good, I just have a short message for all of you who have been sending me fanfiction. If I haven't directly replied to you saying no, we're not going to do it, a couple I have because we can't cover it here. It's either too mature or something along the lines. Keep sending them, but try to send me shorter fanfics to read because a lot of you have been sending great long 9-chapter plus fanfiction, and I will get to those eventually, but right now I simply don't have the time to read through them all. I will have more time during the summer when I don't have school and stuff, or when I'm not working on anything. They will be covered eventually, so don't lose hope. And with that, I think we've wrapped things up here. This has been Moonlight.
This has been Final Draft.
And this has been Andrew J. Talon with Fanfic Corner.